That's you asking me about next year, Jameson. Like, I'm so caught up in what just happened tonight. I can't focus on that right now. Just told you, like he asked me, are you stunned? I'm stunned right now. I'm still trying to process what's going on. Like, okay. I know we lost, but what the, like, you know? Mm-hmm. That's all.
With reason to believe he got what he wanted and he's getting a new head coach. Gotta go be awesome now. And more than being awesome, gotta be available. Want to know a shocking fact? In the last 5 years, Lamar Jackson and always injured, brittle Joe Burrow have played the exact same amount of games. Lamar Jackson has played 70 regular season games and 4 playoff games. Joe Burrow has played 67 regular season games and 7 playoff games, 74 games. Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes have also played the exact same number of games, 93, 19 games more. The Lamar stat is stunning. He's got to be available. He turned 29 yesterday. He's going to get the biggest contract in NFL history this offseason.
If you thought Black Monday shook the league, think again, because this wasn't just loud. This was seismic. The Baltimore Ravens didn't tweak the margins or reshuffle the deck. They blew up one of the most stable, respected head coaching situations the NFL has seen in the last 2 decades. And when the news hit, the reaction wasn't surprise. It was shock. After 18 seasons, a Super Bowl ring, and a resume that reads like a borderline Hall of Fame case, John Harbaugh is out in Baltimore.
Jackson giveth, and Lamar Jackson taketh away. Lamar Jackson gave John Harbaugh life. Remember, John Harbaugh had missed the playoffs 4 out of 5 consecutive years before Lamar Jackson. The Ravens started abysmally. They finally start Lamar Jackson. I believe it was maybe week 11. Lamar Jackson goes 6-1 down the stretch. The Ravens make the playoffs. Lamar Jackson saves John Harbaugh's job. Lamar Jackson giveth. But Lamar Jackson taketh away because Lamar Jackson has consistently been injured, and in the biggest moments, including the playoffs, Lamar Jackson is underwhelmed. 9 touchdowns, 9 takeaways in playoff games. That's not John Harbaugh's fault. Lamar Jackson taketh away. Lamar Jackson gave John Harbaugh probably an additional 6 years of coaching life based on what Lamar Jackson has done the last several years. However, you have to suggest that Lamar Jackson's shortcomings in the playoffs are the reason that John Harbaugh's fired. Lamar Jackson's shortcomings in the biggest games are the reason John Harbaugh's fired. Lamar Jackson gave John Harbaugh life, but just how your mama told you, I brought you into this world, and I'm gonna do what, T?
I'm gonna take your ass up out of it.
And I'm gonna take
if you try me,
and I'm gonna take you out of it. Lamar Jackson kept John Harbaugh in the league, and I would suggest Lamar Jackson also played a major role in getting him up out of it as it stands.
This wasn't a slow leak or a quiet parting. This landed like a thunderclap across the league, and within minutes, front offices everywhere were scrambling. Phones were buzzing. Owners were calling emergency meetings. Assistants were refreshing feeds nonstop. Within 45 minutes of the news breaking, Harbaugh's agent reportedly had 7 teams calling immediately. Not monitoring the situation, not checking availability, but actively expressing interest. That detail matters more than people realize because there aren't even 7 official openings right now unless somebody decides to make one. Which means at least one franchise looked at their current head coach and thought, yeah, this just changed everything. Because when a coach like Harbaugh hits the open market, the rules don't bend, they snap. This isn't a coordinator with one hot season and a fancy play sheet. This isn't a motivational gamble or a projection hire. This is a proven head coach who has lived in the pressure cooker for nearly 2 decades, in a division that never gives you room to breathe. So let's be honest about what this really means. Why Baltimore actually pulled the trigger, where Harbaugh could realistically land, and why teams like the Raiders suddenly look like the biggest cautionary tale in the entire league right now. Baltimore is not known for panic decisions. This organization treats coaching changes like rare earthquakes, not seasonal weather. Harbaugh wasn't just the head coach, he was the culture. He was the identity. He was the stabilizer during quarterback transitions, roster resets, defensive eras, offensive shifts, and everything in between.
On drugs to get rid of Lamar Jackson before you got rid of the coaching staff. We've honestly had discussions. This guy would be on the trade block. What are we talking about? That conversation is done. If you're Steve Bisciotti, if you're part of the ownership group, other people go. Cut other players, get rid of coaches. But I'm sorry, at least for the time being, Lamar Jackson would be a pretty sacred cow in the organization. So the conversation to me if I'm operating around the Ravens, starts with Harbaugh before it starts with Lamar Jackson, if there's a fraction. I'm not comparing Lamar Jackson to John Elway, but I will say this. The best move Pat Bowlen ever made, Dan Reeves was going to trade John Elway, and Pat Bowlen fired Dan Reeves, who, pretty good coach. Hard-headed, stubborn, kind of reminds me of Harbaugh. I don't know if we're on John Harbaugh watch, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
When things got shaky, Harbaugh was the constant. So if this franchise decided it was time, that tells you something important. The season didn't just go sideways. It crossed into unacceptable territory. The Ravens entered the year with Super Bowl expectations and exited with an 8-9 record and no playoffs. Their season didn't quietly fade out either. It ended with maximum pain, a last-second missed field goal in a rivalry game that decided the division. Sure, on paper you can point to injuries, tough breaks, or a brutal schedule. But the deeper issue is the one Ravens fans have felt for years. The same kind of losses, the same frustration, the same late-game collapses that refuse to disappear. Blown leads, questionable finishes, games slipping away when they shouldn't. And when you have a two-time MVP quarterback like Lamar Jackson, the standards are different. You don't get graded on vibes. You don't get credit for almost. You're not paid to be competitive. You're paid to contend. That's why Harbaugh's playoff resume became louder in recent conversations.
To me, had a good relationship. Could it have been better? Of course. Lamar and I never had an issue. I don't know where that comes from. John, I never saw Lamar and Coach Harbaugh not have a great relationship. I never saw that. I never saw Coach Harbaugh and any of our players not have a great relationship. Never, not one time. So any of that would be news to me, but I don't know how people feel.
Early in his tenure, Baltimore was stacking AFC title game trips and cashing in a Super Bowl. But in the second half of his run, the postseason returns didn't match the regular season reputation, and that gap matters in a city like Baltimore. The Ravens aren't paying Lamar Jackson to win October games. They're paying him to own January. And when that goal keeps slipping through your fingers, eventually ownership has to ask the hardest question. Has this partnership peaked? That doesn't mean Harbaugh forgot how to coach. It means this specific pairing in this specific building hit its ceiling. And once that realization sets in, there's no soft way to handle it. Now here's where things get wild. The coaching market is usually cluttered with maybes, trendy coordinators, second-chance candidates, projection hires with shiny resumes but no guarantees. Harbaugh doesn't belong in that pile. He brings three things most candidates simply cannot. Instant credibility. The locker room knows he's real the moment he walks in. Instant structure. From practices to staff hierarchy to expectations, there's no guessing. Instant pressure relief. Ownership can sell the hire as serious, not experimental. If your franchise is drowning in dysfunction, Harbaugh is the closest thing to a lifeguard you can hire. And if your team is decent but stuck, he's the type of coach who squeezes extra wins out of the margins that other staffs leave behind. That's why the calls came in fast. Teams understand leverage, they understand timing, and they understand that waiting even 24 hours could mean losing out entirely. Here's the part that should make current head coaches uncomfortable.
Everything that has been constructed in Baltimore has been constructed around Lamar. Everything that has been done in Baltimore has been, since the day he walked through there, to bring him along and turn him into and help him become the multiple-time league MVP that he's become. So moving forward, it's going to be about, okay, is the next coach going to be able to strike that balance between embracing Lamar, becoming someone who has to work in concert with Lamar, because make no mistake about it, the head coach and the quarterback are the two most important people when you're talking about the football operation. Are they going to have that same relationship that John and Lamar had all during these years? Which, I mean, obviously, I guess it's being called into question now about whether or not there was a kind of like a separation between the two here in the latter stages of their respective careers, which I can't confirm or deny. I don't know about that, but that's going to be huge. That's going to be huge for the next incoming coach, is to have that kind of relationship. Is he going to want to run the same?
Reports say 7 teams called immediately, and that didn't even include Baltimore itself. That means interest exceeded openings, which is how jobs get created in this league. Somewhere right now, a head coach with a decent record but shaky trust is feeling the temperature shift. Because when someone like Harbaugh becomes available, patience across the league suddenly gets real thin. So let's really sit with this for a second, because this is where the whole thing turns nuclear. Either every open team called faster than expected, Or at least one team without an opening picked up the phone too. That's the bombshell. That's the part executives don't want discussed publicly. Think about what that actually means. It means there's at least one franchise actively asking itself the quiet question every owner hates admitting out loud. Do we stick with our guy, or do we pivot to John Harbaugh while we still can? Because Harbaugh isn't just another name in the coaching pool. He's an override candidate. The kind that makes owners suddenly question loyalty, timelines, and how patient they really are. If your coach just went 7-10 and the excuses are piling up, Harbaugh becomes gasoline on that impatience. All of a sudden, one more year feels like a gamble instead of a plan. That's why the whispers around the New York Giants make perfect sense. The Giants right now aren't just losing games, they're lost. And when a franchise loses its identity, it starts chasing one. Harbaugh doesn't need time to find an identity. He brings one pre-installed. Hard-nosed, structured, no nonsense. Special teams discipline, defensive toughness. Do your job or take a seat. And New York is a market where the head coach has to be more than a play designer. He has to be a stabilizer, a shield, a standard, someone who absorbs pressure so the locker room doesn't splinter.
All right, Harbaugh just got fired.
Harbaugh just got fired.
Harbaugh just got fired.
Oh, man.
That was
That's where Flo going to the Ravens.
Okay, what did I
You've
say?
been
Flo
saying
going
this,
to the Ravens.
you've been saying this since mid-season.
Man. I said he has to go.
man.
I told you that and you argued with me.
Flo going to the Ravens. They
Woo.
got a great. They got a
But
great
also
plan.
for other teams, they are going to snatch up Harbaugh in a second.
He probably go to New York or something.
You think?
They had to choose between Lamar and the head coach, and they chose the quarterback as they should have. You better. You better. I read a story yesterday where every guy on the team was raving about how great Lamar was as the leader of the football team, and it screamed to me, anti-Harbaugh, anti-Harbaugh, anti-Harbaugh. The leader of the team was Lamar Jackson, who can now take over the team, and I hope they go get the correct. He needs to have a big say in who the.
Harbaugh fits that mold perfectly. And for Harbaugh himself, New York offers something else entirely. A stage. If he flips that franchise around, he doesn't just win games. He becomes a legend in one of the loudest markets in sports. Now flip the lens, because there's another job people aren't talking about enough. The Ravens job itself. Here's the truth nobody should miss. The Baltimore Ravens opening is not a rebuild. You've got a franchise quarterback entering his prime. You've got a respected organization, but real infrastructure, real scouting, real expectations. That's a win now and win later situation rolled into one, which means Baltimore is about to attract everyone, not just hotshot coordinators, but serious coaches who want stability instead of chaos. Whoever walks into that building will be expected to contend immediately. That's pressure, but it's also opportunity. Now, while Baltimore is resetting from disappointment, the Las Vegas Raiders are living in a completely different universe. This isn't disappointment. This is dysfunction. The Raiders just wrapped up a nightmare season. Embarrassed repeatedly. Directionless weekly. And then they fired Pete Carroll after 1 year. That alone tells you everything. When you dig deeper, the story isn't just that they weren't good. It's that the entire operation looked misaligned from day one. A first-time GM thinking long-term, a veteran head coach talking like it's win now, and Tom Brady as a minority owner with influence big enough to shape decisions, but not structured enough to carry accountability.
With college football from the past. Mark Richt won a lot of games at Georgia. Won a number of games, like was considered and regarded as one of the best college coaches. Never could get over the hump. Kirby Smart comes in, wins national championships, and you don't hear Mark Richt's name anymore at UGA, who I believe was one of the best college coaches for a large majority of my generation coming through school. So Baltimore, only reason you fire John Harbaugh is because you think somebody is going to get you that half a step further. Because this team should have at least been in a Super Bowl. And he didn't get fired for not being a good coach. He didn't get fired for not having his team prepared and things going the right way. He got fired because once you get to that position, you start getting judged on the margins. We're not judging you for your 13 wins anymore in the regular season. We're not judging you for your first place bid in the AFC to get into the playoffs.
That's the danger zone. Power without responsibility turns buildings into rumor factories. And by season's end, the Raiders didn't look like a team with a plan. They looked like a team reacting to noise, trading for an older quarterback, Spending on veterans, drafting like a rebuild, then firing coordinators mid-season like a team in full panic. That's not strategy. That's whiplash. One of the biggest gut punches came on offense. The Raiders brought in a high-profile offensive mind and it never clicked. Reports painted a picture of confusion, lack of buy-in, play calls the players didn't fully own. The run game sank near the bottom of the league. The quarterback was under constant pressure. The offense didn't just struggle, it looked broken. And when they fired the offensive coordinator mid-season, that wasn't adjusting. That was admitting the foundation itself was cracked. Then there's Max Crosby, the heartbeat of that team. A guy who's lived through coach after coach after coach and still plays like it matters every snap. When you have a player like that, talent alone isn't enough. You need trust. You need belief. You need alignment. And the moment a leader like Crosby starts feeling the organization drifting, that's when the real danger begins. Because the Raiders' biggest threat isn't just losing games, it's losing belief. And that's where all of this connects. The Harbaugh firing, the coaching carousel chaos, the Raiders' collapse. Stability has become the rarest currency in the NFL. And the moment someone like Harbaugh becomes available, every fragile situation across the league starts shaking.